there, it's your boy Biot-Savart, and I figure, you know what, it's 2024. I should have made this video back in like 2017 or 18, but you know what, I'm going to make a Modern Warfare 2 weapon tier list video right about now. And let's go ahead and start off with the assault rifles here. So the M4A1, I'm going to put in the A category. All the assault rifles and SMGs and LMGs, sniper rifles, I presume the attachment that these are all ranked with the assumption that the attachment you're using is FMJ in some capacity. So the M4A1 with FMJ is, right off the bat, from the start of the game, one of the best guns in the game. Very little recoil, pretty good iron sights, but the problem is, the thing holding this thing back during its life cycle in Modern Warfare 2 was that sometimes the muzzle flash would be so great that you can't actually see who you're aiming at. So that was a problem. But otherwise, the M4A1 is an A tier, great gun. Up next is the FAMAS. Oh, you may notice that I've arranged these in approximately the order they're unlocked, and primary weapons to secondary weapons. FAMAS, also an A tier gun. 3-round burst with stopping power, pretty much unstoppable. The iron sights are actually pretty good with FMJ. The little recoil, very good gun. I mean, sometimes you miss your burst, but for the most part, the gun's very good, even at long range. Now the Scar H is going to be our first S tier weapon. It has very clear iron sights, it has very low recoil, and with FMJ, this gun is pretty much unstoppable at any range, being a 2-hit kill with stopping power. Similarly, the TAR-21 is like the Scar H, but with a little more firepower and a bit more recoil. But nonetheless, with FMJ, this gun demolishes your enemies. I mean, it cuts through them like they're butter. I mean, the TAR-21 could not be stopped with FMJ. The FAL is unfortunately going to be a C tier weapon. Nothing against the FAL, it's just that compared to all other guns in the game, this one has a very tough time competing. Now, to be fair, there is a great combination of bling to get 2 attachments on there. You can put it on the holographic, or no, not necessarily. You can just put on the holographic, and with stopping power, it's a 1-hit headshot at close range. To be fair, that makes it more competitive, but that still doesn't bring it up to the B tier for me. So I'm going to leave it in that C tier. Now the M16 here, I believe I have it in the A category as well, similarly to the FAMAS. It is unique in that if you put on the holographic, that actually decreases the recoil of the gun. So if you duo this with bling, you can get the FMJ and holographic on there, and this gun was extremely powerful, therefore, with stopping power. Of course, the thing about the burst fire weapons is stopping power is pretty much mandatory to get these to the tier that they are. You could justify using the Scar and TAR with lightweight or cold-blooded or hardline, but you were probably using stopping power back in the Modern Warfare 2 days. Now the ACR I have in the A tier, which might surprise some of you. Why not have this in the S tier? Now, it is very good, but it is weaker than the other 2 guns here, which was why I'm going to make a little bit of a controversial decision and put it in the A tier. I mean, even with FMJ, it's still very good. The iron sights are still very usable, but I don't think it quite compares to the Scar and TAR. Now, the F2000 is going to be one of the few weapons in the D tier. This gun was kind of a joke. I mean, its iron sights are kind of bad. You can't really use this stuff at long range. I mean, even with FMJ, this is like an SMG. If an assault rifle functioned as an SMG, it's just, why would you use this? I mean, you don't get the mobility of an SMG or the aim down sight time. I mean, the one redeeming quality about this thing is that you don't really need stopping power on it, so that means you could use lightweight, but whenever I used it, I found the recoil to be very frustrating. It was always, it sometimes cheated me out of a kill, and one of the things working for this is, weirdly, the red dot sight is different for it. So if you get EMP'd, you weirdly don't lose your red dot sight for the F2000. I guess that's not nothing, but that's, in Modern Warfare 2, the EMP was weirdly placed as a 15 kill streak, so why would you ever go for the EMP if you could go for the tactical nuke? You almost never saw an EMP on purpose. It was a massive joke, but I guess the developers never much cared for that. Yeah, that's why the F2000 is going in the D tier for me. Now the AK-47 I have in the A tier. It is a very powerful mid-recoil gun with very clear iron sights. I would say the iron sights are much better than literally every other A tier gun. It's just as powerful as the Scar and Tar, but the recoil I found sometimes obscures the target and sometimes pushes the gun up and to the right and out of the way, such that a few times it was frustrating to use. Now the MP5 is the first B tier weapon. The MP5 and UMP45 are very good in that they're the only two SMGs with stopping power that are a two-hit kill within their range, so in that sense the MP5 is a very good SMG. I mean, it's unlocked right at the start of the game when you unlock custom classes. And with FMJ, it does very well on maps like Scrapyard and High Rise. But the thing that's keeping this from being an A tier gun is that it has a lot of recoil, and out of range, this thing I think is a 4-hit kill with stopping power, so like that just really puts a damper on things. You have to pretty much one-tap people across the map if you want to have a chance at using this thing out of range. And the UMP45 is a legendary Modern Warfare 2 gun. I have it in the S tier. You can use it both as a stealth weapon with cold-blooded instead of stopping power, because this gun is a 3-hit kill at any range, even silenced. So you can run around maps like Wasteland and Afghan with cold-blooded and Marathon and Ninja or what have you, but with cold-blooded. But the more aggressive way to use this gun with stopping power and FMJ is very powerful and very difficult to stop. It's well known as being one of the most overpowered guns in Call of Duty history, and rightfully so. It's a 2-hit kill and 3-hit kill in any range, and the iron sights are very clear, and this gun has very manageable recoil. Credit where it's due to the UMP45. Up next is the Vector. I'm going to put it in the C tier here. This gun has very good iron sights, very low recoil, but it is the weakest gun in the game. I think with stopping power, it's 3 hits to kill and 4 or 5 hits to kill out of range. But to be fair, this is the seemingly the best long range SMG. Like, without, besides the UMP45, you can pretty much full auto spray this thing across the map and do pretty well with it. I do recall that this is the fastest firing gun, so if you use rapid fire on this, this does strangely fire faster than the G18, which is also an infamous gun from Modern Warfare 2. So if you bling this up with rapid fire and akimbo, this actually is a more powerful close range combination than the G18s, which I think was always just a forgotten combination in Modern Warfare 2. But that doesn't push it up to the level of the MP5K, I'm afraid. So the P90 is similarly a very good gun, but it just doesn't compete at long range as the UMP45 or at close range with the MP5K. The iron sights are very good, low recoil. Working for it is its very large magazine size. I think it was like 50 bullets. So you don't need extended mags at all. You'll almost never run out of ammo using this thing. And a weird caveat with this gun is if you do get the extended mags on there, it does give you, strangely, 3 more seconds of sprint time. So you'll, instead of 4 seconds of sprint, you'll have 7 seconds of sprint. To be fair, I never used that. I always preferred this with FMJ, and especially on maps like Scrapyard and Trailer Park and what have you. It was very good otherwise. But it still is not as powerful as the MP5K, being a 3-hit kill at close range with stopping power. The Mini Uzi, I'm similarly going to put in the C tier. It's very similar to it's just a more powerful Vector, I would call it. The iron sights are very clear. It has just as low recoil. The problem is that the reload of the Mini Uzi is, I think, the longest of all the SMGs. And that's pretty much holding it back. To be fair, this Mini Uzi and P90 Well, the Mini Uzi doesn't really. The Vector and the Mini Uzi do not require stopping power to be effective. You can be just as effective without, so you can, to be fair, use lightweight with them, and they'll be still very competent guns. So that is working for them to keep them out of the D tier. I mean, all these guns you'll quickly notice in Modern Warfare 2 were very good, so there's going to be very few D tier guns in this list. Moving on to the LMGs, we're going to start off with the L86 LSW, and it is going to go in the B tier. This gun is the most damage per second gun in all of Modern Warfare 2, without stopping power, as presuming all guns are without stopping power. But the problem is, and its iron sights are pretty clear, but this also has, I think, the most recoil of all the LMGs, so at long range you literally have to one-tap people. It should be noted that this gun's ACOG scope is unique in that it doesn't have like a reticle in the middle like all the other ACOG scopes do, but just like a vertical line leading upwards. I think that reflects its real-life version. And its reload is also weirdly faster than the other 3 belt-fed LMGs, so credit where it's due. The thing is that what's holding us back from being an A tier is that recoil, and that's pretty much it. Now, in contrast, the RPD is an S tier gun. This is pretty much the AK-47, but with less recoil and infinite range, because you must remember that in Modern Warfare 2 the LMGs had infinite range. That is, they had no damage drop off, so with stopping power all of the LMGs were 2-hit kills, except for the MG4 and M240, which we'll get to in a moment. But the RPD had the best iron sights in the game, had almost no recoil even without the grip. Grip and FMJ, a great combination. You're pretty much unstoppable. You can hold choke points extremely easily. The one thing holding this gun back is the reload is like 9 seconds long or something like that, so hopefully you get your Harriers before then and can just chill. But otherwise, the RPD, grip, and FMJ, a great combination, almost unstoppable. So up next is the MG4, and I'm going to put this in the A tier. I don't think people quite grasped how good this gun was back in Modern Warfare 2, the heyday of Modern Warfare 2. One thing must be mentioned, obviously, is that the suppressor doesn't work. It silences your gun audibly, but you'll still show up as a red dot. The iron sights are kind of bad, yeah. But, and another thing is that the red dot sight is weirdly misaligned. The bullet does not go exactly where the red dot is. I don't know why that was. That was never fixed either. But the simple solution to this is that if you partner up FMJ with the holographic sight, this gun has very low recoil even at full auto, so at long range you'll be mowing people down, 3-hit kills. You can even use the ACOG scope on these LMGs, including the RPD and the AUG H-bar, which I'll get to in a moment. But the MG4 was a very powerful gun. It was like the ACR of the LMGs, which I guess nobody ever realized. In some ways, it was actually better than the ACR, because the ACR had damage drop-off, because the ACR would eventually become a 4-hit kill at long range. And the MG4 is still a 3-hit kill at long range. And with FMJ, it's not like they're going to hide from you behind cover. So I don't know why this gun was always slept on Modern Warfare 2's heyday. So the AUG H-bar, I'm going to give an S. Also, one of the best guns in the game. People seem to only realize how good this was in Black Ops 1, and even then, the AUG was not used as frequently as the FAMAS was. But that's a story for another time. The AUG H-bar is a very good, very clear iron sights weapon. Almost no recoil. The magazine size, to be fair, is a little bit on the smaller side. I think it had 42 bullets without extended mags. With extended mags, it became 63, but nonetheless, the recoil was like that of an assault rifle, so you could justify using Bling or Scavenger with the AUG H-bar. To use the grip on there would even be clearer. You really don't need a sight on the AUG H-bar. The iron sights are as good as they get. I mean, the AUG and RPD have the best iron sights in the whole game, and as does the SCAR, quite frankly. as is the UMP. That's TAR 21's iron sights are a little bit in your face, but doesn't necessarily hold the gun back at the ranges you'll be using it. Something I should have mentioned with the MG4 is that FMJ, when using FMJ on this gun, it weirdly shows up as being called explosive rounds. The rounds are not actually explosive. That might be an earlier name for Full Metal Jacket in Modern Warfare 2. That was just never removed from the MG4 for some reason, because apparently the devs also were sleeping on how good the MG4 was, and as was most of the community. But nonetheless, the AUG H-bar is a very good weapon. Up next is the M240, and I have this in the C tier, unfortunately. The iron sights are like the M16, kind of bad. Like the M41, the muzzle flash really gets in your face, and sometimes I have a tough time seeing who I'm actually shooting at because of all that muzzle flash. This gun, you have to make a decision of whether to just stomach the iron sights and muzzle flash and use the grip with FMJ, or use the holographic or red dot sights with FMJ. I think on this gun as well, the red dot sight is misaligned, so you're pretty much forced to use the holographic with FMJ. I would say you could use the ACOG on this gun, but I think this is the only LMG in which the ACOG is actually a hindrance, because it has the most recoil of all the LMGs, I believe. Excluding the L86, the second most recoil, I should say. And also, this gun, weirdly, the silencer also doesn't work on it. Don't know why, but you'll still appear as a red dot, even though you'll decrease your range, and this gun will become a 4-hit kill out of range, I believe. But I still want to put it better than the D tier, because you can still hold down a choke point on this with this gun very well. The fire rate is also should be mentioned. I think this has the highest fire rate of all the LMGs, so in that sense, it's has good stopping power at close range, but you don't want to be using one of these LMGs at close range. That's not the point. And moving on to the sniper rifles now, let's talk about the Barrett 50 cal and Intervention. These are the most famous guns of the bunch. Everybody knows the Intervention. It's in every Modern Warfare 2 sniping montage ever made. I would argue that the Barrett 50 cal is actually the just statistically better gun. It has 10 bullets without extended mags. The Intervention with extended mags has 10, but you'll want to be using these with FMJ anyway, just to kill enemies behind cover more consistently. Also, they have about the same fire rate, because the Barrett 50 cal has immense recoil, where it just pushes you up and to the right after every shot, such that you can't spam this like you can a certain other sniper rifle, which I'll get to in a moment. But I'm going to put the Barrett and Intervention both in the A tier. They're very consistent, very powerful sniper rifles. They don't really need stopping power, but given that these silenced are almost useless, you probably won't be using this with Cold-Blooded, which is very ironic. It would seem that the game was designed a little bit differently, that you would use all the sniper rifles with Cold-Blooded, but that was not how the game played out. So the Barrett 50 cal and Intervention both go in the A tier. It should be mentioned that their reloads are kind of slow, but you'll almost always be using these with Sleight of Hand Pro anyway, so the reloads are not that much of a hindrance. Now, the WA-2000 is a very unique sniper rifle, and I'm going to put it in the B tier, because it's not bad, but it's not great either. It can be frustrating sometimes to seemingly hit somebody in, the upper arm, you think, or like the lower abdomen, but to get a hit marker, and then they just run off. Because the recoil on this gun is inconsistent. Like, it'll bounce up, but sometimes to the left, sometimes to the right, sometimes upwards. And at long range, you can't spam it as well as a certain other sniper rifle. And stopping power does not change those hitboxes at all. So I guess that kind of works for it, kind of doesn't. You can use this gun with the silencer and Cold-Blooded, and if you just accept the fact that you're going to be two-shotting pretty much everybody, then okay, fine. But if you don't want to be doing that, then you're going to be you're going to be upset. You're going to be wondering why you're not using the Barrett or Intervention. They're just more powerful. This thing has 6 bullets and 12 with extended mags. I would say, use FMJ by default, but I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to use extended mags either on this thing, because the bullet penetration on this is kind of weak. The gun is weak to begin with, so it's kind of a mid-tier gun in the game. A bit unfortunate. It should be noted that I think the Barrett, I think just the WA-2000 has this weird, face, little cartoon face on the scope that looks at you when you're using it. I don't know what that means, but it seems to be an Easter egg of some sort. That's neither here nor there. It doesn't affect the gun at all. So up next is the M21 EBR, and this gun also seemingly was forgotten how great it was in Modern Warfare 2. I'm going to put it in the S tier. This gun was incredible. This gun was with stopping power, without stopping power, you could just spam it across the map. It had very controllable recoil, 10 bullets in the chamber, the magazine, excuse me. You could very consistently get a lot of kills with this thing, hold down an area very consistently. It doesn't really, when you're up against another powerful sniper rifle, like the Barrett 50 caliber Intervention, I can see those just quickly out-sniping you. But against literally everybody else, this sniper rifle destroyed people. You were not limited to either stopping power, so you could silence this thing and use cold-blooded and do very well that way. This is the only sniper rifle, actually, which justifies using Scavenger, just because of how much ammo you're going to be using. And you're not going to be quick-scoping people with this thing, so you also aren't as reliant on Sleight of Hand Pro. So the M21 is, I think, the best sniper rifle. Might be a controversial take, given the Barrett 50 cal Intervention's popularity, but this was the best gun in the bunch, in my opinion. You may notice that after the sniper rifles come the riot shield, and I dedicated a specific category to the riot shield and stinger. These primary weapons are kind of a joke. I mean, the riot shield is very frustrating to use if you are actively trying to get kills. I mean, do not go for it. I don't know if I've ever seen somebody get a tactical nuke with the riot shield in Modern Warfare 2, but it's appropriately very difficult to do. Something I've also been thinking of doing is creating a Modern Warfare 2 riot shield weapon guides in the similar style to what Xbox Ahoy made back in the day, just because I aspire to make that quality of video someday. Shamelessly, I'm admitting that here, but the riot shield nonetheless was, you're not really using this as a primary as you would literally anything else here. It kind of just is a joke primary weapon. But I will weirdly say that, all it does is absorb bullets, but I will weirdly say that does actually work to your favor when you're in a lobby with a cheater, because if they're just aimbotting across the map, then the riot shield is the only way to actually combat that, because they'll lock onto you like any other player, and they don't know you have a riot shield, so they'll just start shooting you, and this thing will keep you alive, but that's about it. It's also a 2-hit melee kill, which the knife in the game is a 1-hit kill. Even against painkiller users, this thing is a 3-hit kill against even painkiller users, a 2-hit kill against everybody. So the riot shield's kind of a joke. Similarly, the stinger, this is not an actual weapon in the game. The only time it would ever get a kill is completely on accident. You would have to, like the stinger missile that's shot out of the stinger gun launcher would have to be redirected by flares, crash somewhere else on the map, and then that would have to kill somebody. That almost never happens. That was one of the most rare things in all of Modern Warfare 2. Also very rare. I don't think this has ever happened in Modern Warfare 2, but the bullets that shoot the riot shield apparently ricochet off, and in the game's loading screen pro tip section, it claims that those bullets can kill, but I don't think that has ever been recorded in Modern Warfare 2 history. If it has, please leave a comment. Show me the URL of the video. I would be interested in seeing that myself, but I don't think, since 2009, it's been about 15 years, I don't think that's ever happened. There actually have been recorded videos of rogue Stinger missiles killing people just on the map, if you ever tried to shoot down a Pavlo or a chopper gunner with it. But these guns are neither here nor there. Alright, so those are all the primaries. Let's move on to the secondaries. And you start off with the machine pistols with the PP-2000, and this thing is kind of like an SMG in disguise. I mean, they're machine pistols to be fair, so they are the closest thing. But this thing, the BB-2000, very little recoil, very clear iron sights. Um, you can you can actually justify using this as a primary. I mean, this thing I think was a 3-hit kill, but it only had 20 bullets in the magazine, so you had to be pretty darn good. So, and with stopping power. The thing with the secondaries is that it is a factor of how fast you can switch to them, and this thing you switch to reasonably fast. You have to pull a little lever on it, but otherwise it's a fast switch time. And the PP2000 therefore goes in the A category. Now the G18 goes in the S category solely because you'll almost always be using it akimbo, and this thing akimbo, with or without stopping power, with or without steady aim even, quite honestly, completely destroys people. I was just talking about the riot shield, but like I've noticed whenever I use the riot shield, like the G18 is a very good counter to the riot shield. You can just quite easily mow down people. I think this gun came with 32 bullets in the magazine, times 2, that's 64 bullets of unlimited destruction. So the G18 is widely remembered as being an overpowered secondary in this game, and rightfully so. With akimbo, I'm going to put it in the S tier. You can also use Bling Pro to get a second attachment on your secondary. So the akimbos with either the silencer or FMJ or even extended mags, all of these work perfectly fine to create an even more potent secondary. It should be noted that the G18 is also one of the loudest guns in the game, so if you're playing with headphones and you're trying to, rationally listen to footsteps and whatnot, be more tactical, then you should know that the G18 is going to hurt your hearing, like in real life, more than anything else in the game. Similarly, I did not mention that, but the M240 is also one of the loudest guns in the game. But the G18 at least justifies it by being very good. Nevertheless, I'm going to move on to the Raffica. The Raffica I'm going to put in the A tier. It is a very powerful, similar to the FAMAS and M16, a burst fire weapon. You switch to it very quickly. I would also like to note that this gun, if it is your secondary and you use the last stand perk, which you shouldn't because that perk is annoying, but if you ever do that, you'll notice that for whatever reason the Raffica will show up as your last stand pistol of choice. So, I mean, if you want it to be really annoying, you can just go into last stand and kill people pretty easily with the Raffica relative to the M9 that you would otherwise usually get. But the Raffica, you also are dependent on stopping power, but this thing had no recoil. Like, this thing had less recoil than the FAMAS and M16. So you could weirdly, one-burst people with this more consistently at long range than the FAMAS and M16. So I always found that to be a bit strange, but that is a possibility. The iron sights are very good, which is very good. They're very clear, which is very good, because the red dot sight on this gun, similar to the MG4 and M240, is misaligned and foul. I also didn't mention that with the foul. The red dot sight is misaligned, so don't bother with the red dot. You'll almost always be using the holographic on this anyway. If not, then the ACOG is also decent. But nonetheless, you don't bother with the red dot sight, or don't bother with the holographic either. The iron sights are very good. It has, I think, 20 bullets per magazine. I don't quite recall, but it always had enough to kill one person within range. And the M93 Raffica can also be akimboed, also a very good combination. This was a great secondary for snipers. It pulls out faster than the PB-2000, and the G18 also pulled out very fast. The M93 Raffica, one of the best snipers, close range weapons, akimboed, because it destroys people very well. Now, we're going to move on to the TMP. This gun is, I think, for most of you watching, a completely forgotten weapon in Modern Warfare 2, as are most of these, I think, C tier and D tier weapons. The TMP is kind of bad, but not so bad that I want to put it in the D category. It had almost no recoil. Its iron sights were very bad. You can't see at long range through that little like orange semicircle. So also the primary reason I'm putting in this C tier is the magazine size. I think was 15 bullets. That's the smallest of all the machine pistols. So you pretty much are forced to use extended mags on this thing, which before you unlock it, you're going to be very annoyed at this gun. Um, the machine pistols, like you can use all of these as a primary, to be fair, but you'll notice that the G18 at long range is kind of a crapshoot. The TMP, you'll very quickly be annoyed at the 15 round magazine, and with extended mags, that weirdly becomes 25 rounds and not 30 or 20, but 25. Um, what's holding this back from being a D tier gun is that this gun has no recoil. It's very good in that sense. It pulls out reasonably fast. Um, it also doesn't require stopping power in that sense. Just know that it's a very weak gun. I believe the PP2000 is a better choice for a fully automatic machine pistol. And moving on, we're going to move on to the legendary shotguns of Modern Warfare 2, which, don't forget, were a secondary weapon back in this game. The Spaz 12 is rightfully in the S tier. Right from the start of the game, you unlock the best shotgun in the game, and it's very powerful. You don't need steady aim. You don't need stopping power either, quite honestly. This is pump action, but you will almost never need more than 2 pumps, even without stopping power. You can use lightweight on this thing, or cold-blooded, and this has very good range and very good damage. The iron sights, within the range of the Spaz, they're good enough, but you'll mostly be hip firing the shotguns, and the spread is very good in Modern Warfare 2. The Spaz also doesn't really need any attachments to be better. Like, it's within its range, it's just as good, no attachments, as you would get the extended mags attachment at 400 kills, which increases your magazine from 8 shells to 16 shells. 16 shells, you can pretty much get away with never reloading, because you'll probably, number one, get your kill streaks that you're looking for before you need to reload. Number two, you'll probably die before you need to reload to use all of your 16 shells. So the Spaz, in that sense, is ready to go and ready to do your work right from the start of the game when you unlock those default classes. Moving on, the AA-12, I'm going to put in the A tier. The AA-12 was a very good gun. With extended mags, this thing I would put in the S tier, but without extended mags, you know what? The grip is the way to go. The grip will bring this gun faster to your hands when you switch to it than otherwise. I think that was intentional. But this thing, also not reliant on stopping power, just as good with lightweight as it is with stopping power, because you'll probably use the entire 8 shell magazine on a single enemy anyway. You'll probably reload after killing an enemy anyway, so if you have 1 or 2 shells left over, then it doesn't really matter. Thing is that this thing's kind of weak. Like, you'll almost never one-shot anybody. Yeah, like, even with stopping power, you'll almost always need a few shots. So the problem is that before you get extended mags, you have 8 shells. You can, if you're good at the game, you can pretty reliably kill 2 enemies at the same time with this thing. But that third enemy, you will almost never kill. You will have to be the best in the world to kill 3 enemies consistently with 1 magazine, not extended with the AA-12, which is what was holding this gun from being an S tier. Otherwise, the AA-12 is an incredible, fully automatic shotgun. Now, the Striker, I'm going to put in the B tier here. Semi-automatic, very large magazine, middle-of-the-road shotgun. This is what we all think of when we think of shotgun. What is holding this gun back? It's in the same league as the Spaz 12 and AA-12 and M1014 shotguns. This has a bit lower damage than what you would want. Stopping power or not, you're probably going to shoot this a few times. The thing is that given that, you reload this with every shell inserted 1 at a time. So, like, you have 12 shells, I think, in your magazine, or maybe it's 8. But, like, it takes a little bit of a while to reload this gun, which sometimes holds it back because you'll want to reload this gun, unlike the Spaz 12 extended mags, which you really don't even need to, but because it takes a few shells to kill anybody with the striker, stopping power or not. It should be noted that this gun is good with a silencer. This is the best silenced shotgun in the game because it doesn't lose that much range. Because the AA-12 and Spaz 12 silenced are almost useless. You should not bother with them unless you're trying to, I don't know, annoy somebody or annoy yourself mostly. I mean, but the striker silenced is the best way to go if you want to silence a shotgun. So the striker's a solid all-around decent shotgun. Now the Ranger, I'm going to put in the C tier. That might be a little controversial. Most of you remember these guns as being very powerful, but the Ranger's, ironically, range is the smallest of all the shotguns. And it takes 10 kills to unlock the Akimbo attachment. The Akimbo attachment's really the way to go with the Ranger. You also weirdly unlock the FMJ attachment at 50 kills. I don't know if anybody has ever gotten an FMJ kill with the Ranger, because you'll almost never be shooting through cover with these shotguns. But nonetheless, the Ranger only has 2 shells before you need to reload, so it's kind of like the Scout's shotgun in Team Fortress 2, for those of you who are familiar. In that low ammo, high damage. But you have to be, like, I think in the same room with the person, and if you're using the Ranger, not all maps are built for that. Like I remember Skid Row is a very good map for the Ranger. I believe High Rise is a very good map for the Ranger, but maps like Afghan and Terminal, not so great. So that's what's holding this gun back. And I do feel comfortable putting it in the same category as these other ones. The Ranger, to its credit, is very powerful. I think it's the most... One shell has the most damage output of any gun per second anywhere. So with one shell, you can actually kill somebody with Painkiller. You cannot do that with any other shotgun or gun in the game, I believe. They'll all take at least one more shot. But to its credit, the Ranger is very powerful within its range. But you'll also often be frustrated at targets being out of range. Now, the M1014, also one of those strangely forgotten guns of Modern Warfare 2. This was, I think, the best shotgun that's semi-automatic. This is much better than the Striker. Has 4 shots, but you will almost never need 2 or more than 2 to kill anybody. 4 shells in the shotgun without extended mags. With extended mags, it becomes 6. So you'll prefer the extended mags attachment when you get 400 kills with it. But even without, like, same with the Spaz 12, this gun is just as good with 0 attachments as it is with anything else. But unlike the Spaz 12, it does kind of depend on the extended mags to become a little bit more usable. You reload 4 shells, all individually, similarly to the Striker, but it'll seemingly be, it's a little faster, I think, with the M1014. M1014 also not at all reliant on stopping power. In fact, I would recommend not using stopping power with this thing. Lightweight would be preferred if you're going to run around with this thing as your primary. Otherwise, feel free to use this on something that doesn't require stopping power. The range is better than the AA-12, about the same as the Striker, and less than the Spaz 12, but nonetheless a very good shotgun in the game. I don't know why this gun was seemingly never highlighted in the Modern Warfare 2 heyday. So up next is the Model 1887, and I'm going to put this in the B tier. Yes, I am going to put it similarly with these guns, only because the Akimbo models are kind of good. They're kind of usable. Now, of course, if you're a fan of Modern Warfare 2, you've heard of the legend of the Model 1887s of being the Akimbo models having the same range as the single model from back in the day, and those days are long gone, I'm afraid. The Akimbo models' range is similar to that of the model, the M1014 and Striker. The thing is, these Akimbo are reliant on steady aim, else your crosshair will be very large and difficult to hit targets consistently. These reload very fast Akimbo, like, strangely enough. The Rangers, to their credit, also are akimboed. They reload. If you were to hold them to the full reload. They're very long, but the reload cancel is very good. You can reload after like 1 second and get going. Similar to the Model 1887, the individual model reloads very slowly because it's one shell at a time, and you have to, I guess the character brings the shell from their pocket to the gun very noticeably, and you have to pump the gun. But akimbo, it reloads strangely faster. I don't know how that's possible, but I guess that is to the credit of the gun. Akimbo, the Ranger akimbo, you can get away with firing both barrels at the same time from left and right arm. But the model, I would strongly recommend firing one gun, your one arm, and then the other arm alternates, and then the initial arm goes again. So such that you're firing left, right, left, right, left, right, and not two at the same time. Because if those two don't kill, and which they often won't, unfortunately, even with stopping power, you're kind of out of luck right there. That's the enemy's window to kill you, and you'll find that they often do. You could use these without stopping power, but I wouldn't recommend it. These are kind of bad without stopping power. Strangely enough, the single Model 1887 has the closest range to the Spaz 12 in that it's very long, and with steady aim, you can kind of consistently get kills with or without the FMJ attachment. But that just raises the question. I mean, these are unlocked at like level 65 or 7 or something. Raises the question, why not just use the Spaz 12 if you're going to use a single Model 1887 the whole time? You'll almost certainly always be working towards getting the akimbo achievement, the akimbo attachment, excuse me, for the models. In which case, something that you can't really grade is that these do weirdly look the most cinematic of all the guns in the game, in that the person, when you have the akimbo models, you don't pump the gun or check it in any way like you would the single one. You actually flip it back towards yourself, and that somehow loads a new shell in, which that's not something that affects your gameplay, but I just think it looks cool. I think other people agree. And those are all the shotguns. Moving on to the pistols here. The USP-45 I'm going to put in the C tier. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's mediocre. It's a two-hit kill within range with stopping power. Small range it has. Semi-automatic. It's a perfectly fine little pistol. It's the one you start the game with. You switch to it. You switch to all the pistols very fast in this game. Much faster than the machine pistols, but I can't really justify putting these pistols in the B tier. Like I think that would just be off-putting, given the other guns here. But the USP-45 is a fine gun. It should be noted that this is the only pistol you can silence and use effectively as a stealth pistol. So, to its credit, there you go. If you wanted to use it as on a stealth build of some sort with maybe the WA-2000 or M21 or even the UMP-45 or something like that, you could use a silenced USP-45, as we'll get to why in a moment. The 44 Magnum, I am going to put in the B tier with these other guns here, because within range, it is a two-hit kill without stopping power. That is very good. These other pistols without stopping power within range are three-hit kills, except for the Desert Eagle. So it is a powerful weapon. It also reloads efficiently in that you reload all 6 bullets at once and not one at a time. That was a problem in Black Ops 1, and where you actually learned the revolvers, you reload 1 bullet at a time, which is very annoying unless you have a speed reloader in there, but that's also a story for another time. The 44 Magnum, akimboed, is a very powerful close range setup, especially for sniper rifles that don't require stopping power, such as the WA-2000 and M21. Akimboed, they actually have a small crosshair, smaller than you would expect, so you can use these to just fire away at close range pretty well, to its credit. I will, if I ever make that Riot Shield, Modern Warfare 2 Riot Shield weapon guide, I do plan on including the 44 Magnum in there, because you can switch to this quickly from the Riot Shield and kill people pretty effectively once they start either running away or start throwing their stun grenades at you or whatnot. You can just quickly switch to your akimbo magnums and destroy the enemy. The problem is, I think akimbo takes 50 kills if I recall correctly, so it's a little bit of a hassle getting there. The Lone Magnum is fine enough as a gun. It has low recoil and well, low in its range. At long range, it'll take, I think, 3 shots to kill, or 4, I don't recall, but pretty good nonetheless. So moving on to the M9, I'm gonna put this in the C tier. It's almost the same gun as the USB 45. It has a little bit less visible recoil, but it still, bounces up a little bit. Only difference is this gun, you weirdly can't silence it. Once you put the silencer on, you're both decreasing your range, as well as you still appear as a red dot on the enemy's minimap, even though your gun is audibly silent. I don't know why this was never fixed, or maybe that was deliberate all these years to balance the guns in some way. These questions have gone unanswered for 15 years. I assume they were just never fixed, but the USB, for that reason, is the only pistol you can silence and use stealthily. Unless you wanted to use a machine pistol silence, such as the PP2000 or Ravika or TMP. But I'm going to leave these in the C tier. This is about where the pistols belong. It should be noted that the pistols in this game are very powerful. That is to say, within range, they're 2-hit kills, so you can weirdly walk into little rooms and use this thing very effectively well. They're very good in that sense. Pistols in that sense in Modern Warfare 2 were strangely overpowered, actually. If you were to ever, get killed by one, you would think, oh, that was a little too fast. That guy's pistol's too strong. He beat my, MP5 or whatever in this room. I'm a little surprised. But yeah, the pistols are weirdly more powerful than, the Vector in P90 with stopping power within range. Nevertheless, I'm going to move on to the Desert Eagle here, and this I believe is the final gun that's going in the D tier. The Desert Eagle of Modern Warfare 2 was a very bad gun. Its iron sights were weirdly misaligned. I don't know why or how, but I guess that was never fixed again in Modern Warfare 2. The recoil is very large. The gun bounces a lot up and to the right. I think back in the Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare days, the Desert Eagle was considered the best pistol in that game, and you could get golden Desert Eagles, and I guess that was just the thing to have. So to balance this, they made this thing absolute trash in Modern Warfare 2, and in Modern Warfare 3 it became somehow even worse, but that's a story for another day. But the Desert Eagle, strangely enough, if you use stopping power and you headshot somebody, that is 98 damage, which I guess is interesting to note, because if you strike someone with a stun grenade or flashbang or, heaven forbid, smoke grenade, then that impact itself is 2 damage, or even, frag and semtex. That right there is 2 damage, so I guess you could kill somebody with direct impact if you, hit them in the head. Maybe you sneak up on them and throw your little stun grenade or flashbang at them. If you wanted to do that, I don't know. If you're bored with a game, I guess you could use these 2 D-tier weapons. I mean, interestingly enough, neither of these require stopping power, so if you wanted to make a class to challenge yourself, you could use both of these in one class. The Desert Eagle akimboed is, barely better. You could kind of justify akimbo Desert Eagles, but you'll also notice, you'll frequently ask yourself, why am I using this if I have the akimbo magnums? They're just better and less frustrating, because the akimbo Desert Eagles will really rise up in the air and really annoy you. But those are all the pistols. So all that's left is the launchers here. So the AT4, I'm going to put this in the B tier. The launchers, you can't use them as a primary because you've only got one rocket at a time and it takes a while to reload. These are also dependent on having scavengers, so you're going to be reloading for a while. But the AT4, it's a free fire or vehicle lock-on launcher. You can this thing weirdly when fired doesn't sway very much at all. You can pretty much snipe people with this thing across the map, with or without danger close. And it'll pretty consistently hit your target. I don't know why, but it's like that. You can also lock on to enemy aircraft, such as the Harrier helicopter, attack helicopter, Pavlo, AC-130, and Chopper Gunner. But the thing is that this rocket by itself is not powerful enough to take out any of those aircraft with just a single rocket, so you will need gunfire to take out the aircraft. Except the AC-130. This is powerful enough to take out the AC-130 in one hit, as is any rocket. But, I mean, it's good for when you're starting the game, but for either the rocket aspect or the anti-air aspect, you'll soon unlock better guns. For the anti-air aspect, why not simply use the Stinger? It locks on and kills anything in one hit, and you get 2 rockets as opposed to the one AT-4 rocket. You get, I mean, it's just a better, more logical choice there. Moving on, the Thumper is, I'm going to put in the C tier. It's a grenade launcher, but the assault rifles come with an underbarrel grenade launcher attachment. All assault rifles get their M203 grenade launcher, but I didn't mention the AK-47 gets its own unique model, the GP25, which reloads a little differently, but is otherwise the exact same. It's faster to switch to, but longer to reload, if that'll affect your decisions at all as to what gun to use. But the Thumper, I mean, it's fine. As a secondary, I don't know why you would really ever put this on any class. Like, if it's slow to switch to, it does one thing. One thing it's good at is hitting enemies behind cover, but like if you have an assault rifle, like you can completely cancel this out by just attaching an underbarrel grenade launcher. If you have an LMG, you can hit enemies behind cover with your FMJ, which I would strongly recommend you use. If you have a sniper rifle, you would not use this logically because you need a secondary for close range engagements. SMGs, like, you're moving faster on the map. The thing with the grenade launchers is that they require a minimum distance traveled before they actually detonate. So you can like try to one-shot people with this thing if you're in the same room, and hopefully it bounces into them or something, but the Thumper was always weirdly out of place in this game. Like, it's just a grenade launcher secondary. Like, why not use for added firepower, why not use a rocket launcher, or for close range engagements, why not use a machine pistol or shotgun? Also, I guess you can shoot this thing at enemy aircraft, but the firing projectile is arched. Like, you have to predict where the target will be. There's no lock on, and the targets are very far away, so you might be out of range, which is a thing that can happen. Like, you can't fire your Thumper grenade launcher that far anyway. But I guess you could plausibly take down aircraft with this thing if it's weak enough. But I have never seen that, I don't think, in Modern Warfare 2. I think I've tried, but I've never done it myself either. After the Thumper is unlock the Stinger, but I've pretty much covered everything with that already. It's there. Moving on, the second to last launcher is the Javelin. I'm going to put this in the C category as well. One rocket at a time. Pretty much, if you want to use this as a primary or area denial weapon, you're going to need Scavenger. You're going to need... I mean, this thing is plenty good without Danger Close, but Danger Close makes this like a Predator missile flying through the air. Every couple seconds, as many Scavenger packs as you can scavenge out there. And it takes a little bit of a while to lock on, like 3 seconds, I think, to lock on, and 4 seconds, let's call it. And then the launch sequence isn't like a straight line. The rocket needs forward clearance, so you need a clear area, open area in front of you, and the rocket will launch into the air, so you need the ceiling above you to not exist, or be glass, and the rocket will seemingly strike near where you're locked on to and do a lot of damage. 2 things of note. The Javelin, when it impacts, creates a very large smoke screen, which is difficult to see. So that might be something to note if you wanted to smoke screen. And something you never see in Modern Warfare 2 is the smoke grenade. Well, strangely enough, if if you have the stun and flash grenades, then why would you ever use a smoke grenade? You almost never saw the smoke grenade in Modern Warfare 2, but the Javelin creates a smoke screen. This can be used in objective game modes to launch on or in front of an objective and give yourself a smoke screen. Um, but and also to take out aircraft, you only get one rocket upon spawn, and it takes longer to lock on to enemy aircraft. So, like, why would you not just use a Stinger for that? So, and also, the thing I've also not mentioned this with the Javelin or AT-4 or Stinger is that with Harriers and the Cobra attack helicopter in particular, they would strangely, the lockdown missiles would strangely somehow miss the Harrier or Cobra attack helicopter. The Cobra variant was used by the Western aligned factions, such as the U.S. Army Rangers, Task Force 141, and U.S. Navy SEALs. So that is a weird advantage that you didn't think you'd have, but the rocket will sometimes just miss those vehicles whenever they're flying through the air. I don't know if that was deliberate or not, but sometimes that would happen. I don't know if that's a balance issue or whatnot, but the Javelin will similarly sometimes just go up into the air. You'll think it's coming down to hit the target, and then it just whiffs and it hits somewhere on the ground. It might just come right back at you, so be careful. But the Javelin, to its credit, is a one-hit kill against all aircraft if you can get its flares out of the way. And the last launcher is the RPG-7. I believe I'm going to put this in the B tier. Yes, this has 2 rockets as opposed to the AT-4's 1. But in contrast, its rockets are much more sporadic in their flight path. They will sway up, down, left, and right, much more than the AT-4. So, but I believe their blast radius is a little bit larger than the AT-4's. So in that sense, if you wanted to use this as a primary and be annoying, I guess this is a more sustainable option than the AT-4. The thing about the AT-4 and RPG-7 is that if you fire it at your feet, you will die, so be careful with that. And something else I have not mentioned with any of these launchers is that I guess a counter that was implemented into the game was Blast Shield, but all it does is seemingly cancel out danger close, but not the inherent blast radius that the launchers have, so the Blast Shield will almost never save anybody from these launchers. And you also almost never run into anybody using Blast Shield, unironically. So that puts the RPG-7 in the B tier. I will mention also that you can shoot down aircraft with this much better than the Thumper, certainly. Much quicker than the Javelin, but it is a bit of a crapshoot because the rockets might veer off course, and you also have to predict where the aircraft will be in the future, such as the helicopters that fly around. But unlike the AT-4, you can free fire them, so even aircraft with flares you can circumvent by just aiming and hitting the aircraft anyway. That can work against the Harrier. If it's stationary and you're close enough, you can down this thing with 1 rocket and gunfire or 2 rockets. The chopper gunner, weirdly enough, this thing, the RPG-7, works kind of well against the chopper gunner if you can get out of its kill box, that is, and you fire 2 of these things. That does a lot of damage. That'll down the helicopter with gunfire or a second rocket. And against the attack helicopter, it depends on, strangely, what map you're playing at. The attack helicopter will fly at different altitudes depending on what maps, so that might make things a bit tough there. I don't recall what maps, but some maps, certainly the attack helicopter is easier to strike than others. The Pavlo, strangely, or appropriately, is the easiest to shoot down with your RPG-7, although I think it requires 3 rockets to down without any gunfire, or 2 rockets and some gunfire is enough. And that, I think, covers everything. The RPG-7, I guess you could fire it at UAVs or counter UAVs or the AC-130, but I have never in all my years seen a clip where an unguided RPG-7 downs an AC-130. I've come close. I've seen them fly close to the AC-130, but I've seen them, like, other people shoot AC-1 or RPGs at when I'm in the AC-130, and I'm seeing them come close, but they don't seem to ever hit. If anybody has seen such a clip, then please link it in the comments below. I would be interested in seeing such a phenomenon myself. But I do believe that's every weapon in Modern Warfare 2. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a video there. This is something I've made in 2024, but I admittedly should have made years ago, back in 2017 or 18, back when I was playing the crap out of this game. But that pretty much is it. If you have some arguments for or against moving a gun elsewhere into another category, feel free to leave a comment. I would love to hear it. I do understand that some of these guns I've placed perhaps too highly, too lowly. So give me your feedback in the comments below. Alright, thanks for watching. Have a good one.